Hello, this is Daniel Evans, and this is the Week 5 video reflections assignment for sports economics. So, first off, I want to talk about something that I brought up in class to Professor Rizzo about how schools occasionally close classes just to allow students to watch major sports games with their teams in home stadiums. And the example I mentioned was Wake Forest in the 2021 college football season closing classes just so their students could go watch a home game in college football since their football team had an unusually good year in 2021 and actually was ranked. So I was thinking about potential economic ramifications for this, and I thought of a couple. First, well, not only does this mean that some schools have discount tickets while others give them out for free at certain events, last I recalled. So but either way, they go in and aside from potential ticket money, they also buy stuff like merchandise and food because of college pride. So that basically is them handing the university money, but also it makes them likelier to buy tickets. And for some colleges like Penn State, they have to buy all the tickets for a season. It's called a seasonal ticket, which costs like hundreds of dollars. So basically makes them much likelier to buy that because they feel like their team is doing well and they feel more connected to it. It's a way for the university to get money all under the excuse of national pride or college pride, sorry. Also, I think that there is a real possibility of leagues, both college and professional, like was mentioned in class about athletes being illiterate. So there's a real possibility of both college and professional leagues, especially professional, exploiting illiterate athletes in like contracts, like how much they're going to pay, or there's going to be certain conditions to get this much money, or you'll only receive health care or retirement money under certain circumstances. And I think that there's a large possibility of that, but a lot of it just hasn't been revealed yet, or it's been kept under wraps. Also, I think that it's funny because look, the topic of college athletes getting paid has been a very long-lasting and controversial debate. South Park made a video making fun of it. John Oliver made a video talking about it, and and but aside from the recent Supreme Court ruling that college athletes can get a sponsorship, and also some state rulings like in Alabama, the thing is that it's funny how scholarships are basically de facto bribes for students to come play for those schools by promising them tuition that's cheap, if not free. But teams that directly pay students in the past, even if it's not as much, even if it's only just as much as a scholarship would be, get badly punished for directly paying them, such as the infamous SMU death penalty in the late 80s that crippled their program for a quarter of a century. So basically, indirect payments of tens of thousands via scholarships are fine, but direct payments of the same amount of money seems to be a no-no. Also, the next subject I'd like to talk about is the Olympics, because Professor Rizzo talked about them and how like they have a net revenue loss of millions. Thing is, I'm pretty sure that it's like similar to other sports leagues, they probably have a lot of indirect profits that make up for the official revenue loss and then some. Probably through like TV deals and indirect sponsorships and payments and things like that. And also, like, even if it didn't, no country would ever cancel it because A, it would look very bad if you were the country wanted to cancel, who said that you want to cancel the Olympics. And B, all countries want to show aside from the fact that a lot of countries want to host the Olympics, even if it has a negative economic effect on their country, for the name of status, there's also the fact that having your athletes be in the Olympics is like so important to a country's national pride. So the Olympics, in this case, functions kind of like a service that doesn't do it for a profit, and it's not run like a business. It's kind of like the mail service in the U.S. It's not run for profit. It's run for its service. Also, but another thing is, even with this net revenue loss, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, has so much power over decisions, both political and economic that relate to the Olympics. And I'm thinking that there has to be a lot of indirect profits for the IOC to have this much power despite the official net revenue loss. One last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Olympics is how, for a lot of countries, the economic effects are negative because of setting things up before the Olympics, things during the Olympics, and after the Olympics. A lot of countries aren't ready to handle it, like Russia's sloppy construction of their stadium for the 2014 Olympics. There's how Brazil not only removed a lot of people from slums during the Olympics, but also Brazil suffered after the Olympics because Brazil is terrible at using stadiums for other things. But the thing is, the US, for all of its flaws, and especially its sports flaws, actually doesn't suffer from this because they have so many large stadiums, courtesy of their sports culture, that it's so easy for them to just host a big Olympics thing, and then when it's gone, no worries. The US use the big stadium for football and hockey and basketball. So that's one benefit of the US's larger sports culture. Also, one last thing I'd like to mention is how I just realized that a lot of schools that have bad sports teams but are in relatively high sports leagues can get a lot of money, probably even more money than schools in the same league but with better teams, because as long as those schools with bad teams are still popular, so to speak, as in they're a large source of being viewed on ESPN, they can still get almost as much, if not just as much money from like broadcasting and deals, with possibly fewer expenses in the athletics division. Like in all the college sports divisions, there's that one bad team. In the SEC, for example, Vanderbilt has the worst football team without a doubt. They have never had a 10-win season, and in the 2021 season, they were the only SEC team to not make a bowl game. But I'm pretty sure that due to all the TV deals and the fact that that like other SEC teams, they're shown on ESPN, courtesy of an ESPN deal with the SEC. The fact is, they probably make nearly as much, if not just as much money as other SEC teams, but probably spend less on expenses for athletics and more on academic expenses because Vanderbilt is considered an Ivy level college. Anyway, so my two questions are, my first one is, as I mentioned before, even though financial aid and scholarships aren't that different in many ways from paying athletes outright, even they probably are like the same amount, tens of thousands, why is actually paying the athletes, like what SMU did to get them the death penalty, so heavily banned by the NCAA? Because like I mentioned, like aside from sponsorships, directly paying the athletes is banned and will get you the death penalty. So why is that banned? While financial aid and scholarships, which pay like similar amounts of money just in indirect ways, aren't banned? Also, another question is, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of bad teams and high-up football conferences that can make a lot of money despite not spending as much on athletics, like Vanderbilt and the SEC. Why are the reasons that the big college football conferences would possibly allow bad teams in their conferences instead of just having all good teams? And with that, those were my two questions. This is my week 5 video assignment. Thank you for watching and have a good night.